Hello, my name is Cal. For today's discussion, we'll be covering why Ukraine should not be allowed to join NATO. This issue is deeply rooted in history, geopolitics, and military strategy and has significant global consequences. To understand this debate, we must take a look at Ukraine's historical ties with Russia, the significance of a NATO membership, and the potential consequences involved. Starting in 988, the Great Prince Vladimir is baptized in Crimea, marking the region as the birthplace and cradle of the Russian Orthodox. In 1654, the Treaty of Perezvol, Ukraine formed a military alliance with Russia in exchange for protection from the Polish and Lithuanian regime military. In 1991, we have the collapse of the USSR and Ukraine gaining its independence. However, Russia still considered Ukraine as a place of falling under their sphere of influence and influence in the region. In 2008, NATO openly supported Ukraine and Georgia's aspirations for memberships. In 2010, Ukraine adopts a non-aligned stance under the newly elected President Yanukovych, slowing down the NATO integration. In 2014, we see the Revolution of Dignity. Protests led to the ousting of Yanukovych, in which Russia perceived and believed it was a US-backed coup. Russia responded by invading and annexing Crimea to ensure the continued influence into the region. This was a turning point into the NATO and Russia relations. Moving into the Black Sea and the maritime dynamic of why the region is held in high esteem and strategic importance to the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin. Primarily, there are three key reasons: strategic importance, economic benefits, and added buffer zone between Russia and NATO. Russia's only warm water naval port is in Crimea. Losing Crimea means losing a major naval base and its ability to project power into the Mediterranean and outward to the world. Access to the already established trade routes, oil and gas reserves, and infrastructure in term of the Turk Stream pipeline and the Blue Stream pipeline. The added benefit of the buffer zone: if Ukraine joins NATO, the Western Alliance will be right at Russia's border. This threatens Russia's security and increases NATO's influence into the Eastern European region. Moving into benefits for both sides, either NATO or Ukraine. Primarily, we're going to talk about Article 5. Article 5 states an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all. If Ukraine joins NATO, any future Russian aggression could trigger full NATO military intervention. This is a major problem because it increases the risk of direct conflict between NATO and Russia. It could escalate into a broader European or even global war. Russia may view Ukraine's NATO membership as a provocation and take preemptive actions to stop, much like what we see since 2022. How Ukraine joining NATO would strengthen the alliance is the expansion of NATO's military presence in the region, with the added benefit of their experienced and current military forces, adding numbers to the already expanding NATO military forces. Deterring future and expansion Russian aggression. If Ukraine is under NATO's protection, Russia would be less likely to increase the invasion or escalation. Potential risk involved. Ukraine is already in an active conflict. Russia has kind of used this as a stop to the furthering of a membership. NATO membership requires countries be in a phase or be at peace, and Russia has used the quote-unquote frozen conflict to block the membership. Lowering the threshold for NATO intervention. If Ukraine is attacked, NATO is obligated to respond, which could start a larger war. The permanent proxy war scenario. Russia could turn Ukraine into a permanent battleground, keeping NATO engaged in endless conflict. NATO's credibility is at risk if Ukraine joins NATO and Russia attacks again. Will NATO actually respond? If NATO does not defend Ukraine, its credibility as a military alliance will collapse. In conclusion, why NATO should not accept Ukraine. Ukraine joined NATO. Ukraine joining NATO is not just a regional issue. Has global consequences. It could trigger a direct war between NATO and Russia, escalating beyond Ukraine. It risks entangling NATO in an indefinite conflict that benefits no one. While Ukraine may want protection, NATO must consider the larger risk of full-scale war. Should NATO prioritize expansion or prevention of a catastrophic conflict? Thank you.